Good morning. Today is Sunday, February 2nd, 2025. The splitting of the Red Sea, in our Torah portion, the Parsha B'Shalach, Kriyas Yamsuf, this event is deeply etched into our Jewish consciousness. It's etched in our consciousness by celebrating a special Yom Tov devoted specifically to this, the seventh day of Pesach, for us the seventh and the eighth day of Pesach outside of Israel. And we express it daily in the prayer by saying Oz Yashir, the prayer, the exuberant song that was sung by the Jewish people on emerging safely and securely on the other side of the sea. And we say that prayer for all time. That prayer, Az Yashir, stands for us as a testament to God's power, to God's control, God's interaction and intervention in our lives. This event remains central to our lives as Jews. Okay, it's an amazing miracle. But what's the message that we should take from it? What is the message that we personally can take from this? Yes, of course, God does miracles. Sometimes God does miracles. Sometimes God does not do miracles. But what's the message for us? Now, because we already know the whole story, it is easy for us to miss the absolute absurdity of how it unfolds. So, in last week's Torah portion, where yesterday the Jewish people left Egypt, and a few days later, Vayehafech levav Paro va'avodav el ha'am, Paro changed his mind. In this week's Torah portion of B'Shalach, Vayomrim azos osinu, ki shilachnu es Yisrael me'avdeinu. What do? Letting the Jews go free, and we don't have slaves anymore. We made a mistake. Vayikach sheish meyos rechev bachur, v'chol rechev Mitzrayim v'sholishim al kulo, and Paro gathered together a giant and fierce army to go chase after the Jewish people. Vayirdefu Mitzrayim achareim, and the army chased after them. And you understand, the Jewish people are traveling with men and children and babies, and they're not going that fast. And here comes the army on chariots. Vayirdefu Mitzrayim achareim v'asigu osam chonim alayam, and the Egyptian army chases and catches up with the Jewish people just as the Jewish people are up against the sea. So there's nowhere to go. Behind you is the Egyptian army coming to kill you. In front of you is the sea. Vayisu b'nei Yisrael esenehem, and the Jewish people look back, and they see v'hinei Mitzrayim nosei acharehem. They see the army coming towards them. They know they're not coming to give them some snacks for the road, right? They know that they're coming to kill them. Vayiru ma'od, and they were exceedingly frightened. Vayitzoku b'nei Yisrael el Hashem, and they cried out to Hashem, "What are we going to do? Save us, help us!" And it makes perfect sense that they should have a sense of absolute panic and hysteria because they are trapped. There's no way out. There's no solution. There's no hope. There's no future, which means that the entire Exodus was for nothing. Now again, we know the end of the story, but I'm asking you to put yourself in the mind of the people there. At that moment, there's no way, because they're blocked going forward. The army's coming after them. There's nowhere to run. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. So God says to Moshe, Ma titzak elai, why are you crying out to me? Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'yiso, tell the Jewish people to go. It's one of the most strange verses in the entire Torah. What does God mean? Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, ma titzak elai. What are you crying about? Why are you crying out to me? What? Isn't it obvious why we're crying out to Hashem? What is the way God phrases it as if I don't understand what's up. What's the big deal? What's the big deal is that people understand there is no way out of this situation. And then what God says to Moshe, Daber el b'nei Yisrael, tell the Jewish people, Vayiso, go. Go where? Go where? Go forward, it's water. They're going to drown. Go backward, they're going to be killed by the Egyptians. Go where? Go. Rashi explains, and makes it even more difficult for us to understand. Rashi explains that when God tells Moshe to tell the Jewish people to go, Ein lahem ela lisa, you don't have to do anything except walk forward. There's a sea in front of you. No. Ein lahem ela lisa, all you have to do is walk forward. She'ein hayam omei bifneim. There is no sea in front of you. But there is a sea in front of us. I could see the sea with my eyes. It's a sea. It's water. We're going to drown. What do you mean? Go. What do you mean there is no sea? It's right in front of their eyes. It's formidable. It's foreboding. And everyone is afraid, understandably. Our sages tell us that there was one man. His name was Nachshon ben Aminadav, Nachshon the son of Aminadav. And Nachshon jumped in, and the water parted. Now, we know the story. We know that a sea can split and people can walk through on dry land. We know it because we read this in the Torah every year. We study this, we learn this, we know this. But Nachshon did not know it. No one ever imagined in the history of humanity up until that time that a sea could split. And so he jumped in, and it split. That's what God meant. All you have to do is go. There's no sea there. You just go and it will split. But they didn't know that at that time. Nachshon was the only one who went. He jumped in, and the water split. And at that moment, Rebbetzin Yemima Mizrachi explains, all of a sudden, something started to happen, and no one could believe what was happening. The sea is splitting. It's splitting. It is possible. Something that we never even imagined to ask for. And it's happening. And you take a step, and then another step, and another step, and you're walking on dry land. You see the walls of water on either side of you. You can't imagine that this ever could have happened. And then you're walking through, and then you get to the other side. You find that you have a path to freedom, a path to safety that you never imagined. And here's the lesson for us that Rebbetzin Mizrachi describes. Every one of us needs a Kriyas Yamsuf, a splitting of the Red Sea. Every one of us in earning a living, in our health, in educating our children, our grandchildren, ourselves. Every one of us needs a Kriyas Yamsuf, a splitting of the sea, to understand that drastic change is possible. It's possible in our marriages, it's possible in our children, it's possible in our inner private emotional lives. It's possible on a national level. It is possible to exit from the other side of the sea in safety, to go out from narrow straits of being stuck with no way out, to cross into well-being. And that's the message that this narrative holds for us. That's what we, each of us, you and I, can take from this today to be able to transform our lives going forward. It's an amazing lesson. And here's what makes it really unique. The lesson comes from us. We jumped in. We caused God to split the sea. But I want to point out something deeper. Again, I want you to see in your mind's eye the video of you standing at the edge of the sea, the moment before the euphoria that it's splitting. Just before, the moment before you discover that we can find our path to freedom. We can find our path to well-being. But the moment before that, just before that, you're standing at the edge of the sea. The Egyptian army's coming after you. God says go forward, but it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But God says go forward. Imagine the fear that you would have. I imagine the fear that I would have. Imagine what it feels like to face the sea, which no human being can survive jumping into. The waters are deep and strong. What it feels like to face that sea and hear God say there is no sea. There is no obstacle if you jump in. Would you jump? Would I jump? I don't know. I don't know. Would I have the courage to jump under those circumstances? Not knowing, of course, what I know now. Once Nachshon does it, of course, okay, fine, yeah, sure. But before Nachshon jumps, God says, go, jump. Because that's the only way to get to the other side. That's the only way to get this bracha of a path through the narrow straits to security and freedom and well-being. To be willing to do something that is so frightening, so paralyzing, that you're going to have to overcome it, but you must overcome the fear and the paralysis, because that's the only way that you're going to survive. Senator Jon McCain, of blessed memory, said, courage is not the absence of fear, but the capacity to act despite our fears. Jonathan Kestenbaum writes, we left the slavery and persecution of Egypt and came to the Red Sea, and we had to dive in first in perfect love and in perfect trust before it could split for us and we could walk across, not just safely, but to the promised land. But it required, in the face of perfect fear, it required perfect love and perfect trust in God. That God says to do something that makes no sense whatsoever, and to do it. There are moments in the life of each of us when we are confronted with our greatest fear, and we are paralyzed by that fear. And often, we are unable to jump in, and we remain stuck. But sometimes, with the lesson of this event in our Torah portion, sometimes we can summon our own inner Nachshon, and we can jump. Because it's the only way we will survive, but more deeply and more importantly, because we have developed perfect love and perfect trust in God. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.